Not going to lie, this is pretty much the best case scenario that you have for Jakobi Meyers getting dealt to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, obviously, want to just preface this with looking at what Jakobi has actually done so far this season. Because on flockfantasy.com, he had an average ranking of wide receiver 44, which obviously we're going to have to update my specific ranking with Jakobi Meyers after this deal. But let me kind of explain why. If you look at Jakobi Meyers this season, this is the worst year that he has had since his rookie season. 9.74 points per game. The last time he was under 10 was 2019 for the New England Patriots when he was at 5.63. If we go through and just take a quick little snapshot of why Jakobi's been so bad, has it been his efficiency? Not necessarily. Like 1.7 yards per route run is right about where you've seen him historically. If we're going to look at his yards per game, 50 yards per game is the same mark that you had 2 years ago when he was averaging 13.5 points per game. It was the same mark that you had in 2021 for the Patriots, same mark that you had in 2020. So in reality, I think with Jakobi Meyers, this is a player that is kind of the same talent that he has been for quite some time. Now, the thing with Meyers and why I did not like him in fantasy drafts this season was if you looked at the actions that this Las Vegas Raiders team had taken, they had gone through, brought in a new quarterback, brought in a new coaching staff. They drafted Jack Besh in round 2. They then followed it up with Deontay Thornton on day 3. And Jakobi Meyers, before the season, requested a trade. So clearly this was a team that was not fully bought in on Jakobi. Jakobi was not fully bought in on this team. And with the bad quarterback play, Jakobi Meyers has had a total of 0 touchdowns this season, which is a big reason why his fantasy points per game has fallen dramatically. Now, if we look at this situation that you have for the Jacksonville Jaguars, couple things I first want to discuss. If we go ahead and we look at what we have with Brian Thomas has been garbage, literally horrible. And you can come through and you can make an argument, oh my gosh, this is just due to Brian Thomas being stuck in a bad offense, Brian Thomas will have the ball hit him in the hands and it will go immediately to the turf. Like Brian Thomas, you can blame his struggles on a lot of outside factors like his situation, but a lot of his struggles are his own. There's a reason why Brian Thomas is the wide receiver 42 in points per game. But the thing with Brian Thomas is you're not going to have to worry about him right now because Brian Thomas Jr. is dealing with the high ankle sprain. And you have Travis Hunter, presumably, I'm not going to say out for the rest of the season from a real life perspective. Maybe Travis Hunter can come back for the playoffs for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Maybe Travis Hunter can come back for the very, very end of the season, but you're not getting Travis Hunter anytime soon. So Jakobi Meyers is really the locked and loaded wide receiver 1 for this team for the time being. So we need to go through, we need to move Jakobi Meyers up these ranks. I would say if you're going to be looking at Brock Bowers, obviously Bowers was already my tight end 1 in fantasy, but I think we can move him even higher. Let's go ahead and let's figure out, we probably need to move down some of these names like Brian Thomas Jr. as well. What's actually interesting is Underdog probably already has the projections out for these Raiders players because they play on Thursday. Let me see if they've taken them all down with the departure of Jakobi Meyers from this offense. Underdog has Geno Smith, higher, lower, 215 passing yards. They have Ashton Genty, higher, lower, 75.5 total yards. They did take down the Brock Bowers projection. They previously had Bowers, I want to say like higher, lower, 57.5 total yards, something around there whenever we had checked yesterday. But I'd imagine that projection is going to be going up for Brock Bowers now that you have no Jakobi in this offense. But of course, if you wanted to check out any of the projections on Underdog Fantasy anytime you want, you can with the link in the description, link in the comment section, link in the live chat. Code FLOCK will get you $100 added to your account after you play your first 5. And on top of that, you're actually going to get a free Ashton Genty pick, higher, lower, half a total yard for that game on Thursday. Links in the description, comment section, live chat. Code FLOCK will also get you free questions that you can ask in these live streams. But regardless, we need to go through and we need to figure out where we are ranking these wide receivers at this point. I had already nuked Brian Thomas down to wide receiver 37 in our rest of season ranks because he has a high ankle sprain. He's averaged 10.7 fantasy points per game so far this season. So if we are looking at a Brian Thomas, do I need to move him below Troy Franklin, Chris Godwin, DJ Moore? No, not really. I think what this is going to do is this is probably going to lead to Parker Washington going down because Parker Washington was really only interesting given the role that he was going to have here. Like realistically, I would rather have like Trey Tucker. I think Parker Washington falls back down to being around wide receiver 59, wide receiver 60. So definitely a hell of a lot, less interesting there. Trey Tucker is going to move up these rankings for me quite dramatically. I think we had moved Trey Tucker up to the Shaheed range, about wide receiver 47. And then obviously Jakobi Meyers is somebody that we're going to need to move up. I know this is maybe going to seem crazy, and it very easily could be crazy. Is there a world in which we would rather have Jakobi Meyers over Brian Thomas Jr. for this season in particular? Obviously, we would never say that for the long term. Brian Thomas Jr. is a much better wide receiver. He's a much younger wide receiver than Jakobi Meyers. But if you are looking at the short term, if Brian Thomas Jr. has a high ankle sprain, say he misses the next 4 weeks, we're in week 10. He misses weeks 10, 11, 12, 13. What, you get him one game before the fantasy playoffs start? I would rather have Jakobi Meyers over Chris Godwin, Troy Franklin. I'm going to move Jakobi Meyers up to about wide receiver 38. I think you can make an argument to flip him over Brian Thomas. From a points per game perspective rest of season, I would prefer Brian Thomas, but the thing is you're just going to get more games played out of Meyers. Now, realistically, his first game with the Jacksonville Jaguars, there's no way you can put him in your starting lineup, but realistically, maybe you could start him in week 11 and beyond. So we'll put Jakobi Meyers at wide receiver 38. And then if we are looking at anything else, this is going to make it where we probably need to move Jack Besh up our rankings dramatically. I'd rather have Jack Besh than Jaden Higgins, Darnell Mooney, Jerry Jeudy, Jalen Coker, Jalen Knoll. I'd probably move Jack Besh up to wide receiver 65-ish. So he is playable if, I don't know, you're desperate enough. And then let's just look at the overall ranks, because I do think Bowers is going to, I have Saquon Barkley on my fantasy team. There's a good shot I would trade him for Bowers. I think Bowers moves up to being a B tier level player inside the same tier with Achane, St. Brown, James Cook, CeeDee Lamb, Josh Jacobs, and Rashee Rice. Like, Bowers is going to absolutely crush. I don't think that this impacts Ashton Jeanty much at all. Charles says, what does this mean for Travis Hunter and Dynasty? This literally has zero impact whatsoever on my Dynasty outlook for these players. I don't think we need to be worried about Jakobi Meyers impacting Brian Thomas and Travis Hunter for 2026 and beyond. I think that this is really just going to impact this team over the next 2 months. But yeah, Jakobi definitely wins this because he goes to a team with way less target competition. In my opinion, it's a better team and it's a better offense as well. Better quarterback play. So Jakobi Meyers, big time winner. Also, the wide receiver depth pieces for the Raiders, such as Trey Tucker, they actually look like they could be startable in the flex. I'm not going to say that they're must start players because Bowers and Jeanty are still going to dominate volume and it's still a bad offense. And then in your deepest of formats, Jack Besh could also be somebody that you're looking at off the waiver wire. But I think that should be it for this live stream. Hopefully we get some more trades. Hopefully we're able to actually see something soon about Breece Hall. Fingers crossed. I'll be sticking here at my computer rest of the day, waiting for trade news to come through. And I will go live as soon as we get some. But of course, if y'all wanted to go ahead and if y'all wanted to check out what these projections change to for Brock Bowers once they get updated on Underdog Fantasy, you can always find those projections, higher lowers, on Underdog Fantasy. Link in the description, comment section, live chat. Available in almost every single state. They've been the only sponsor of this channel for 5 years. Code FLOCK is going to give you $100 out of your account after you play your first 5. And you'll get a free Ashton Genty pick, higher, lower, half a total yard for that game on Thursday. And lastly, you will actually get free questions that you can ask me in these live streams. And I'm live streaming every single day until Christmas. But much love. Hopefully, we'll be live in a couple hours talking about a Breece Hall trade. If not, I'll cry myself to sleep tonight. But I'll see you in a live stream later today nonetheless.